So till now we have seen multiple properties, methods, and events of form tag, and other multiple elements under form tag and HTML elements, right? So similarly, we have got some important properties, methods, and events for window and document too, right? So today we'll actually see the some of the important properties we have for window. Generally, there will be so many properties, methods, and so many deprecated properties, so many unused or rarely used methods and events will be there for each and every HTML element. But whatever we are discussing in our sessions are the ones which are mostly used, and you can apply the same way of you know um, same way of implementation for other properties, methods, and events too, right? So now let's understand something about window now, right? So let's take a small use case for understanding window object. Here we have, right? So basically window is an implicit object which will be created, right, in JavaScript. This is an implicit object in the sense wherever we normally run the create a method or create any variable, global variable, right? Or if you want to access the current document, everything is under window objects only. So as we have something called object as a top object being created in, for example, C sharp or Java, here we have something called window. So window is the most um, implicit object which will be instantiated as soon as JS is instantiated. So now let's understand with a small use case. For instance, sometimes we will get requirement to open and close or resize or maintain the pop-ups kind of, right? Right? And this will be like opening up a new window as such. It is same as opening up a new window, right? Open, when I say opening up, it's like open and close, everything should be handled from kind of a single instance of browser which will take care of everything. So in this context, let's see different things which we can actually maintain. So let's go ahead and let me create a new form here. So let me right click and open containing folder. Let me copy the path here, this path, and here I'm going to create file new HTML page, and I'll save it. So let me call it as win1 or window1.html. Oops, I think it actually got saved in a wrong path. So I'll just say save as, and this path I'll say win1. Anyways, win1.html kind of, right? So this is our page we have. So let me create a simple script. So in here, what we want to do, so let's create the script in head tag, and let's create two buttons first. Input, let's say type being button, and let's have name, let's say open window, right? And value, let's take the same, or you can keep this as open window without space, because name is a kind of attribute through which we can control this. We have a value, and let's take ID as txt. So similarly, let's take one more input, type button, and let's say this is kind of a close window, right? Let's take this as close window, and let me take id as txt close. Sorry, btn close, right? It's a button, it's not text, so let's correct that. So btn close. So we have two buttons using which I want to actually open and close two different a form, right? So for instance, anyways, you can see we have already created one form called form3, right? Which is doing some operation anyways, which you have created in our previous class, right? Let's use this form to actually open up in a separate window kind of, right? So now you just say that this, let me create a simple header h1 saying this is form 3. So this header will actually give you a bold look, right? To let me open up in browser, refresh it here. So this will actually show that this is a form 3. Now we know that we want to open. Now let's go back here. Now let me create a simple event here. So here I'm gonna select my on click event. Let's say here, let me call it as open window, open window method, right? And similarly, let's take on click of close window. So here, let me create two functions. One function being open window, other we have here close window, right? So do two different JavaScript methods to handle open and close of window. Now, first, let's look at how to open a simple window first. So we'll be using, as I said, window object dot open method. So here we have you can provide resource or you can provide a URL to this. So let's say, for example, I'm going to give form3.html is my resource I have, and then for instance I don't want to give any other target or anything. For example, you can see everything is optional here. So now I'll just take window.open of form3.html. Let me run this. Let's see where exactly it opens. So this is my window, the main page we have. That when I click on this, you'll see it will open up my page in the separate tab. Here you can see, right? So it will open a separate tab because we are just asking the open window method to just open form3, right? So let's say, for instance, you don't want to open this in a separate tab, but you want to go and open in separate window as such. So then we can add up more features. So for here, let's say target, I don't want to give anything. Now here you have features, very important, right? And we're going to see more features. So initially, let me call some features like width. Let me take it as some 200 px, right? And let's say height, let me take it as some 300 px, for instance. So this is my feature, right? Two different features provided to open up this page, right? So now let me right click and say open in browser, click on it. So now you'll see this will open up in a separate kind of form. So now you can see here you're not able to see the URL, and similarly, right, you won't be able to see the menu as such. So here even you won't be able to resize this. This is like a perfect kind of a pop-up you have created from this page, right? So this is how the window is created as such. Now you can see that you can actually use multiple features for it. For instance, in this window, you want to enable kind of looking at a URL, right? Your menus and all. Let's see how. So before that, let's see how to close this window. See, when I click on this window, what I have to do, I have to close the same instance of window, right? So see, A web application is completely disconnected one, right? It works in a disconnected mode always. Unlike Windows application, in Windows application you have more hold of actually handling the screens created than in your in a web application, right? So here let's see how to close this the same window which you have opened, right? So now whenever I am creating this window dot open, right, this will actually return me the instance of window open. You can see here it returns a window instance. So now let me take a global variable, right, called current window, right? Initially let me call it as null. And as soon as I open, so let's say I'm gonna take the instance of that window, whatever window I'm opening. And the same one, whenever user clicks on this, I want to close. So I'll use current window dot close. Simple as that. This is how I open and close. So now let's run it. Right click and say view in the browser. So now it will open up, click on open, this form will open, click on close, you can see the same form will close. You can see open window again, close window. So now here you can see when I click on open window, for instance, when I click on open window again, see this will open multiple windows. Now what happens here? Now when I click on close window, right, you will see that the latest instance only will be saved, right? When I say click on open window again, now this will be closed. That's it, because we are using one global for maintaining. So in this situation, if you want to maintain one window only, right, you don't want to go for multiple, then you can always use the name of that. Anyways, we'll come to that part. Before that, let's see more features about this window to enable multiple things, like resizing of this window, URL, multiple things. So now we have seen width and height of the window, which will be used to define the window size, right? So let's say, for example, I'm going to add more. Let's say I'm going to say resizable, right? I'll say yes, and comma, I'll say scroll bars, if any, I'll say yes. Similarly, location, this location is something which is called, which is a URL bar, right? The URL, whatever you see, is called as a location object in our JS or DOM. And then let's say menu bar, you have yes. So for instance, these are the features you have. So now let's run the window and see. So v1 browser, click on open window. Now you'll see much richer window. You have URL, you have menu. When you click on alt, you'll automatically see the menu, because the menu is hidden in my instance of browser. But if you have menu open, menu in the sense right click and say menu bar, right, then it will always be shown. Otherwise, anyways, when you click on alt, you'll be seeing this. Similarly, you can see you can resize your window to whatever level you want, right? So this is how you can, now you can, when you close, click on close, this will get closed. This is how we can actually use the window dot open to open up certain form. Now, for instance, sometime we will get some requirement that we don't want to open any existing form, but I want to create a new form, open up a new window and just show the message randomly, right? So in that instance, just remove this specific resource or URL given. Let's say for instance, I want remaining stuff. So here what I'll do, I'll say current window, right, dot document. So when I say document, see document, we know that document is an object under window object, right? So I'm taking the window object dot document dot write, I'll say, which we have already seen so many times. I'll say welcome. I'm just showing some message. This is new window, for instance, right? So here what I'm doing, when I'm taking the instance, right, and I'm actually doing a message here, right? And maybe based on this message, maybe I'll increase the width, for instance 200, or I'll decrease the height to 150, for instance, so that it will fit in. So right click and say view in browser. So you have this open window. So now you can see a simple message, welcome, there is a new window, right? And when you click on close, it will be closed, right? So similarly, when I so here let's see how to close, how to avoid this opening of multiple windows on the same click, right? Because we don't have hold on whatever got actually created multiple times, right? So in this situation, what we can do, in the second parameter, you can see here, right? We can actually provide the name, specific name to this window. For instance, let's say my message window, for instance. This is a reference name for my window instance I'm creating. So what happens here, every time I'm clicking, right, definitely what it will do, it will actually find the same window and it will not open up new. Let me show you that. So here, let me click on open window. See, this is the one which we created. Now again, go back and click on open window. See, it will open up the same window as such, right? But what it will do, it will take the same instance and it will actually include the data as such, whatever we are actually printing in, right? So this is what we can do actually. So this, you just have to make it focus. Maybe when I click on this, see, you can see that it is opening up somewhere, right? When I click on it, see, it will create new again. And when I click on open window again, right, I want this window to come forward and show this, right? So in order to do that, we can actually focus it. So one more internal property of window being, so current window you have so method being focus. So when you use a method called focus, what it will do, it will actually make sure the window whatever we are opening, right, comes in front of all the screens. Click on open window. For instance, let me get it back to this window. Okay, I have this. So when I click on this, you will see this window will come in front. Focus it. Click on this, close, it will close. When I click again, you'll see the same window opens again, and it will never open other window. It will keep the same window active and it will be, that's how the window instance, window object is actually used to create, open up a new window or use the existing window. So these are the methods we have for handling, opening and focusing and closing the windows. Similarly, we have some properties which you can actually use. For instance, let's see the property of a status property. Status meaning, so when I open up a browser, let's say whenever you click on it, you want to show the status, right, at what time you have actually opened. This is a status bar. So if you're not able to see the status bar, you can always enable it from view, toolbars, and status bar. Basically, even I always used to disable this, right, just for the class. I've actually enabled, so status bar here. So when I click on this window, what I want to do, I want to display the time here, right? At what time this window got opened up, actually, kind of. For instance, you're opening up, right? So let's see how. So here we can always use a window. Window will take the current window, right? Current window in the sense, don't go with this. This is a new window we are creating, but I want to go with status of the actual window, which is win1. Win dot status. You have a status here. Just say date dot toString, for instance. So this is a property of window. So when I open it up, when I click on, you can see, right, you can see here it says that, okay, May 6 to 016, right, at so and so time this window got open, right? And whenever I click on this, you can see, right, whenever this link is reopened, right, you will see the change in time. That's how we can maintain your status. And anyways, if you want to clear, you can always clear your status. So if you have it closed, if you are closing it, yes, you can always do that. See, when I open it up, you will see this got open, and time will definitely get updated because this will get updated based on. So when you close it, you will see status closed. So this is how we can actually use the status property right, for changing, right? So similarly, we can actually use this window, right? So whenever you're actually opening up any window, for instance, right? So we can control the parent window. So now here, when I run this page, when I open up, now this is kind of a child form I have, right? And its parent, I mean, its parent is the win here, which means we normally call parent as opener window, okay, right? Meaning opener window. So opener is a property we have in window using which we can actually um, get the object of parent, right? Parent as such, right? So for instance, let me show you one quick um stuff here. For instance, in form 3, right, we were opening, for instance, let me create a new form, open new HTML file. So let me call it as win1, oops, let me save it and call it as win1, for instance, child, right? So here, let's say, let me close this form 3. So this win1 child, so let me create a header. Let me call it as win1 child, right? So here, what I'm gonna do, so let me comment all others and let me work on this specific window. So what I'm gonna do, I'll just copy this line and I'll comment all. So here, what I'm gonna do here, I'll say the win1 child, for instance. So I'm gonna open win1 child. And what I'm going to do, let's say for instance, in my current window, win1, let's say I have a simple text box here. So input text, type text, right? Let's say ID is txt, txt for instance, date for instance, right? Date is a text. So this is my, in my win1 window, for instance. Now what I'm going to do here, when I open up a window, win1 child, from this win1 child, I will actually populate this text of a parent. Yes, we can do that. Let me show you how. So here in my child, let me write a simple script, right? So here what I want to do, let's say I'll create a simple input first. So on button click, for instance, let me take it as button. So ID as maybe btn, let's say set date for instance, right? And here let me call on click event saying set parent date, right? I'm just taking some function. Now here in my JavaScript function, now let me show you how. So first step to actually get the object of parent, right? It's important. How can I get a document? So let's see how to get the document. Let me call it as pdoc, right? Parent doc. So I have a window, current window dot. I have a property called opener, right? This opener will give me the window of a opening window. Dot, I'll call it as document. So this is my parent document. So once you have parent document, then stuff is easy, which means I'll say doc pdoc, right, dot. So now in this document, I know that this is a text ID, right? I'll say get element by ID dot value is equal to, I'll say date dot toastring. Simple as that. So this opener property is a very important property of a window which will get the parent's instance window. And from that I'm taking a doc. Doc will actually give me this. Perfect. Let's see how it works. So here there is a value, there is a text which will be filling. So let's place some style for this window. Style in the sense some font and color so that we'll see. So let's say color, I'm gonna fill with red, for instance, and let's say font size, let me take it as XX large, Let's run this page, parent page. Let's see, this is a very interesting one. Let's say this is where I want to get my tab. When I click on this open window, yep, this will open. Oh, okay. For this button, we haven't mentioned the value, it seems. Let's mention that. Oh, perfect. Now here, let's say set parent take, for instance. Just a simple value so that I can show it on a button. So let me, sorry, I have to run my parent. I click and say view in browser. So this will click on open window. Now your window is open. Now you have set parent. Now when I click on this, see, this will show up here, right? So here I'm actually working on the child one, but you can see that the date will be updated at my parent. That's how it is. So when I click on set again, you will see, right, you're actually updating the parents of it. Now see, it's simple. Now when you're able to get the parent window, right, you can do anything you want. Whatever we have learned to actually do the window, everything you can do from child to parent. That's the beauty of your opener property of a uh, opener property of your window object, right? So that's how we normally set the opener property of a window. Now, similarly, we have one more which we have understood, just understood, like location, right? We have understood one more property called location, which we have seen, right? The same property we can actually check it out here, meaning I can actually create a simple, sorry, input in my parent. Let me call it as a button type, and value is, let's say, open from, let's say, 3 for instance. And here itself what I can do on click, if you remember, I can actually write my JavaScript directly on a click event directly. So I'll access my window object. See, I'm able to access dot location, right? So in this location you can give your URL, right? So either you can give URL, or let's say I'm going to give form3, right, dot html, right? I'm opening up this window. So when I run this, see what happens. So I have my form open 3, click on it. You'll see this will open up my form in the same page, and it'll actually move to the next window as such, right? So this is how it actually the location property is being used directly to move on, right? So similarly, we can actually have multiple same type of properties to actually do. So you can write the same on even on a JavaScript function, right? You don't have to write, but as in that JavaScript function we are going to do the same stuff, right? We can write it here, or else you can directly go create, let's say, open a new window, and you can write the same JavaScript function, I mean this line over there, and you can call this function on click. Either one is fine, right? So there is no issue. You can either do in this way, or you can actually do that, right? So this is how we normally do stuff. Window dot location, where we have seen this. Now we have more internal methods, basically, right, for or basically properties of window, using which we can actually perform more kind of graphic operations too. So we have see, whenever a window is open, right, it's always important to understand, right? Now whatever you actually see, the rendering space, right, the white space just beneath the border is called as an inner space, and the border and the toolbars and everything we normally call it as a outer space. We have, right, outer space of a window basically. So here we have some properties like inner width, right, or inner height, right? Similarly you have outer width, and you have something called outer height. So inner width and inner height will actually give you based on the space, and outer width and outer height will give you based on the border. It will include the border, right? And it will include all other features. So in this situation, inner width and height will be using, most of the times we'll be using inner width and height in real time, right? To set our controls basically, right? So in this, keeping this situation, let me show you one beautiful implementation here. So for instance, let me take a simple div. Let me go with the BR tag. Let me take a div tag. So let's say this div, I'm gonna put some style. So here what I want to do, let's say um, I want to set some border of, for instance, so color I'm gonna take red, and let's say I'm gonna set some border width, and let's say I'm gonna have solid border, right? And then let's say I'm gonna take some property called position property as absolute, and then let's say I'm gonna set, see, whenever I'm setting this, right? Oh, it's px, sorry, right? Whenever I'm setting the property, it's very important to understand, right? So see, you can see it's already created dot here, right? It created dot here, red dot, if you can see here. So let me take one more BR to understand it clearly. Dot here, right? So it just created a dot at an absolute position, which means after this BRs, it took 0 and 0 coordinate and it created, right? For instance, let me give the um, left and right, coordinates. Left and right in the sense, left meaning from kind of your x-axis or y-axis, and right meaning from your x-axis basically. So which means I'm actually looking for left for, let's say I'm going to take 200 px, and right to 200 px, meaning I'm going to take this from both the coordinates of window, and I want to draw it from here, kind of. So here I'm taking certain width. Now for instance, for this, let me take height and width also. So let's say I'm going to take some height of 100 px maybe, and width of 100 px. So let me run this. So now you'll see it's a decent window. So initially what happened, you don't have height and width, right? So this will club and it will be seen as a line. Now what we want to do here is, now I want to show this window, or sorry, I want to show this particular div or rectangle, right? So based on height and width we created, right? It actually created a simple rectangle. So now what I want to do, whenever I resize it, right? What I want to do here is I want to move this with respect to the resizing I'm actually doing it. I want to do automatically. Now let's see how. So here definitely when I say I'm gonna resize the window, which means I'm actually resizing the form or a page. So here in my body, which is a body tag, I have something called on resize event here, right? So on resize event, let's say I'm going to create some property called win resize. Let's create this method, JavaScript method. Let me call it as function win resize. So here let's see how to handle this. So initially, yes, I mean whenever I'm resizing, I have to set a new coordinates for it. So initially we have left and right, so and so, right? We have set. So now let's set, maybe I'll set based on this left and right, because I have to mainly consider the height and width right now, because we gave some height and width for this this graphic, this div, and anyways from x and y coordinates of window we have assigned some for some distance, right? So now let's see the changed ones. Whenever I resize, I will be creating new x coordinate and new y coordinate, and height and width will be same, right? So let's say, for example, let me regenerate the left part. Now, how to do? So I have window dot inner. So for left, whenever I say left, right, which means I'm actually considering from the left side window or a border how much width. So that's your inner width we normally call, right? So from this inner width, now how much I want to reduce, right? So whenever I say how much I want to reduce, the height is 100 px. So I'll take 100. Yes, I want minimum of 100 to be shown. And let's say, for example, I'm taking some extra, some, let's say 20 px, 20 to actually take up the left size. So this is going to be a new coordinate, for instance. And let me append px because the new data I'm going to give in px. Similarly, let me take right RT. For instance, for RT, I know that I'm going to have the inner height, right? And let me remove the 100. 100 is something which I'm going to take minimum height to show this div is 100. And let me show 20 also so that I can see this line clearly. Now we have a new left and right coordinates. So now let's assign it to the div here. So how can I assign? I'll say document dot get element by id of this. So I don't have any id for this. Let's assign id is equal to, let me call it as my div. Let's take this dot. So in this div I'm going to take style dot left is equal to, let's say it's lefty, right? Similarly you have style dot, you have right is equal to, let's say rt. So this is a new view. So this is how we recalculate based on inner width and height, right, at the position you are taking. And then, so let me run this and show you. So here, whenever I resize it, right, whenever I resize, you can see that, right, it is moving, right, with respect to the window I'm actually moving, right? That's how it is moving. So here you can see it is taking the div, right, height, and it is taking the left and right we mentioned. So here, for instance, let me mention the top, right, top property of this, so that the top should always be this much. So let me just see, yeah. So now you can see this is a width I'm taking left 120, and top meaning the top of this I'm going to taking again 120. If you want to see the difference, yes, you can always change. For instance, I'm going to take some 50 at the top. So let me run this again. So you'll see, right? So these two are different. This is a 50, this 20. So this is your width from your left, and this is your width from your to the top tip. Now, when you move on, it will automatically rise. Why? Because whenever you resize, right, the body resize event will be triggered, and automatically you're changing the div position based on the window coordinates. So this is how we can actually, you know, use this inner width and inner height of this method, right? So these are the important properties we have, which we have seen till now for any window, right? Now let's see some of very important methods of window, right? So when we talk about methods of window, anyways, we have seen some methods like, focus and all, right? Some methods we'll see which we normally will be using. The first one being set time out, right? Or even before, we have something called prompt method, right? Prompt method is all is basically to use, right, to enter or accept any data from user. For instance, let me create a simple um, button here. Let's say I have an input type button, and let's say click for prompt. click for prompt, and let's say on click, I'm gonna say prompt. You can see prompt is a method again, and inside I can have a message. For instance, here I'm gonna take, for instance, enter value. So whatever value user enters, right, the value will be shown here. So this prompt, what we're gonna do, I'll actually show it on a alert. Whatever message or value user is going to provide, I'm gonna provide here. So let me right click and say view in browser. Now when I click on it, we'll see is a prompt window. So now this data we're providing for the host, let's say if I give 50, this will right provide it to the message and it will print it. So similarly, if you have any prompt, if you want to accept any value or any data you want, right, you can always give the message and ask for some value. That's your prompt. Now let's see the um, next method called set timeout. So for instance, for this, let me take a simple use case again. Okay, for instance, a set timeout is basically used to delay the execution, right? And you can actually use the set timeout to pulse a method, right? Um, uh, Continuously with some intervals, right? So that you can perform using set time out. So for instance, let's say I want to actually have, I want to show date time, continuous running seconds date time on my screen, right? Let's see how to do it. So for instance, let me take a simple div here. Let me have br tags, and let me take a simple div. In this div, let's say I'm going to take id as my time, for instance, and then let me set some style so that so color, let's say, let me take green, and font size to XX large. So here, this is my, so here let me create a simple JavaScript method called function. Let's say load time, for instance, right? So where I want to show load time here in this div. So I'll say document dot get element by id dot inner HTML, for instance, is equal to, let's say, date dot toast. Date dot toasting. Perfect. So now I want to call this method. So from where I can call in the body itself, let's say in the body we have one more event called onload event. Onload in the sense as soon as this body loads, right? Definitely all the controls elements, whatever you have mentioned, will get loaded, right? So whenever it is loading, I want to call this method called load time. Okay, load time I want to call, right? So now when I run this, we'll see. So you'll see some time here, right? So again guys, one more thing. Let's say when I am running it, you'll see initially this graphic, I mean div, whatever we have shown is here, right? But whenever resize, right, it will start moving here, right? But let's say for instance, you want to show this window right from here itself, then you can always change. Now here itself on load, you can call win resize, right? I'm calling on resize, you can also call on resize. So let's say I'm going to call on resize. Yeah. So can I call multiple methods? Yes, you can always call multiple methods from here using your semicolon. So here what we are doing basically, right, we are actually converting, right, the initial step itself, we are actually trying to resize on load itself, which means when I call resize, automatically it'll move here, see, and now from here it will start anyways, right? Anyways, that's fine. So here let's see how we can actually get this. So for instance, here I'm actually taking up this. So let's say I'll say to local string, for instance. So when I run this, I hope it will give me short form. Okay, fine, no issues. So here, now let me show how we can actually use. So here, what I'm gonna do, see, definitely I'll have to call load time again, right? Right? Because I have to, when I call load time again, what it will do, it will recursively call the same method and it will recursively update my data, my date here. But we know that I want to update this after every certain time, for instance. So for that, what I'll be using something called set timeout, which is a window method you have. And then we'll say, okay, what method to handle? Yes, I know this is the method to handle. And then we have next property or next argument called timeout. So this is in milliseconds. For instance, I'm going to give 100 milliseconds, which is 1 second. So which means when I say set timeout of load time, which means this method will be recursively called every second. Right? These are milliseconds notation we normally give. Now let's run this and see how it works. So you'll see, right? So every second it is ticking, right? And what happens? Your time will be updated in your screen. Now it will not freeze your screen. You can always do whatever you want. You can, right? You can work on it, right? You can window. So this will be, working asynchronously as such. You can see. You can always update, open form 3, stuff and all. So this is how your set timeout works, right? So similarly, you can actually use this set timeout to, actually, prepare for multiple, handlers now. Now this set timeout is basically used to call it with a delayed time as such, right? Similarly, on the same lines, um, we have two more very important methods called set interval and close interval, or basically it's clear interval, right? So set timeout basically executes with a delayed time you set, but set interval, right, will call method repeatedly with regular intervals we normally provide, right? So that's how it actually does, right? So let us see how this basically how the interval stuff works, right? Then we have set timeout, right? So both have got a very thin line of you know thin line of difference. So timeout, we have seen that yes, I'm going to use this so that every time it is calling, what is happening in every function call, I have to call this so that it will call it again, right? For instance, if I call this directly from, for instance, here, can I do this? Yes, I can always do it. What I'm doing here, I'm calling from, see, from event I can call my JavaScript, right? That's what I'm doing. So for instance, I'm calling from here, load time, set timeout of load time, which means it says, okay, fine, don't call this method now, call it after a second. That's the meaning of this. So when I run this, you'll see, right? That's it. After a second, right, it actually called this method, and that's it, because this method is no more valid. That's how set timeout works. But if you use the interval, now this will be ticking every second as such. Let me show you that. Let me place this, fine. And what I'll do, I'll actually go ahead and say, so here, let me create one more div with the same features. BR. So let's make this size as just large so that we can accommodate both. So let's call this as red. So I want to actually update this time, which is, let's say, my, let me call it as interval time, for example, right, with some other function. Now here, let's say I'm gonna call the same Let me create a different function altogether, and I'll say load some enter time, right? And I'm going to take document dot get element by ID and actually take this my enter time. End of the day, I'm performing the same action, which is dot inner HTML is equal to date dot toString, for instance, right? Now this is how I'm actually calling. But here, what I'm going to do, let me take two buttons here. So here I'm going to call input. So let's say it's a button, and the value let me take is as start ticker, start tick, for instance, right? And I'll say on click, I'll take it as start tick, right? Similarly, let me take one more method, which is button, one more button called stop tick. I'll create separate for stop tick, for instance. Ticking in the sense, okay, start ticking the time and stop ticking the time. So now what I'm going to do, I'll create a function for start tick. So in this start tick, what I have to do, I have to use set interval. You can see you have something called set interval, which is a window method. So in this set interval, what to handle? Yes, I want to handle this method called set or load in the time every second, for instance. That's it, right? So this is how it gets. Now what it will give you the ID to handle. So for instance, I'm going to take handle, which is, let's say, interval ID, for instance. Now this interval ID will be global and always take it. So now as soon as I set this interval, what happens? Now we don't have, this method will never be called again. Now this will set internally, and every second this method will automatically will be triggered. That's your start tick. Similarly, if you want to stop, then you can do function. You have a stop tick. Stop tick is easy. What you have to do, you just say clear interval and provide the handler. Now interval ID is this. Now this will automatically stop, which means this is a reference to start and stop as such, right? So let's run this and see how it works. So here, let's say click on start tick. Now you can see this is working. Now both the times are working. The previous time is recursive with the timeout, and this one is with time interval. So when I stop, you will see it's starting. When I start it again, sorry, when I start, now you have again. When I stop, it will stop, right? So that's how your set interval actually works, where you're actually performing some continuous action to it, right? And you'll be getting a handle of your ID, which is your interval ID, right? Counter ID as such, which will uh, take care of clearing, stopping and starting your ticks. So these are some important properties, events, and methods of a window. Okay. So the next one we have is document, right? So for from the start of our class, we have seen many things about document, many events, many methods, inter methods, and so many things we have seen, right? So yeah, I mean we can handle this document, right? Events and all, right? Which is again an internal object of window as such. But here let's see something different as part of document, right? Here, so let's take one more element under document called image, which we'll be using normally, and we'll create some event, right, to change the images dynamically, right, as part of this. Let's see this. So as part of all these exercises, right, we're actually trying to actually get a handy of our JavaScript callings and all. Fine, that's the main intention here. So let's create a new form. Let me go and create a new file, HTML file. Let's say this as let's say doc norm, for instance. Now here, what I'm gonna do, I'll take image, right? So here, let's take a simple source. So source, what should we take? Let's say, for instance, here, if you see the now here I have taken two images, on and off, right? PNG, on.png and off.png, right? So let's see how we can actually. So here, image, for instance, initial image, I'll take it as off.png. I'm taking in a same location. If you have any absolute path, you can always give. That's not a problem, right? So here I'm taking off, let's say, for instance, I'm going to give some height as 200, for instance. This is a image I'm taking. So let me right click and show the image. Now, yeah, this is the image, you can see, right? It's simple bulb image I've taken. So now what I want to do, when I mouse over on this, the event which we're going to take for image element is mouse over and mouse out. When I mouse over, it should light the bulb, and when I mouse out, then it should take out, right? So which means we are going to have two different events being handled. One on, sorry, on, you have mouse over, you have, right? Let's say I'm going to take it as a light it. I'm just taking some method, and we have on mouse out, right? I'll say switch off. I'm just taking some kind of names here. So now let me show the script. This is important. So I'm going to take a function with light it, for instance, right? So what I'll do, I have to dynamically change, right? Light it in the sense when I mouse over, I want to change the image source. Now how to do it? So let's take some ID for this image. ID is equal to, let's say, my image, my img. So let me call document dot get element ID of ID dot. Now this will give you object of image. Then you have something called source, src is equal to give the source. Source will be on.png. So this is the one which I've mentioned on, right? Similarly, I have switch off method, right? Let's write that one too. You have function switch off. Here I'm going to take the same and I'll say off.png again, which is I'm recovering the same. That's my window, right? Image I'm going to have it. So let's run this and see. So using JavaScript, you can completely create a graph. When I mouse over, you can see. So what I'm doing here, I'm not actually performing any magic here. I'm just changing the source because two different images, right, are used here. Whenever I mouse over, light it, meaning I'm changing the image. That's it. When I mouse out, I'm changing the image. So both images are like light and go. That's how it works. Now this is our light and go. Now in this, right, one thing which is important is, for instance, see this event, whenever you are calling event and JavaScript methods, you have seen so many events being called and JavaScript methods being triggered. But here we'll understand one new thing. Now, current instance of image you can push through an argument here, meaning I can call here as this. When you say this, which means you're calling the current instance of image object as such. Meaning here I can call, for example, let's say I'm going to take a img, meaning this is my argument parameter, argument image kind of. So at that instance, I don't have to go for document. I can directly use this object and say source is equal to, let's say, on.png. Simple as that. Similarly, let's say I'll take it here and I'll say off.png. Now let me run it and show what it actually do. So when I mouse over, you see the same thing works. Now what is this AMG? A is nothing but your argument image. Some image. This is some parameter value I'm taking. You can take X, A, B, any name you can take. What happens whenever you mouse over? What it does? It will call this lighted method JavaScript function, and it will push the current this object, which is document.get element id of image kind of. And here when it is already giving me instance, I just have to set the source. That's it. Right? That's how the JavaScript methods get triggered here. This is how it actually gets triggered. Right? So this is how we actually use the document, because here anyways you're actually getting the element of that document. This is about your document view. Now we have some other apart from, we have seen form, window, document, and many other right. So we have some more DOM objects, right? Like for instance, we have something called history. Now what is history here? So history is an object using which we can actually get the history of pages, which means if I have, let's say, some 10 different pages browsed and I'm in a current page, if I want to go to the backward and forward, right, I can directly use it. Meaning, let me show you how. For instance, here in my let's say here itself, I'm going to take one button. Let me take a br, two brs rather. Right. Let me take a hr. So here what I'm going to do, let's say I'm going to take one input button, and let's say here, let's say I'll say go back. Right? So on click, so I'll say history dot back. This is my when I say history dot back, right, this is something which I'm calling to move to the previous resource. Anyways, when I run this page, we know that now when I click on this go back, there is nothing in here, right? I mean, there is nothing that I can actually go back. So let's say, for example, I am going to go to previous one called win1, something called win1 some page, or form3 for instance, form3.html. Right? Now again I'm gonna come back to, for instance, doc.dom.html. Now you can see there is some history. When I right click, you can see there are some history. Right? So when I click on this, you can see it will automatically take me. Now how it is taking? Now instead of actually we allowing user to use this button, I'm directly giving. You can directly go back to the URL. So it will save the past URLs. Right? It will save all the past URLs. Similarly, if you want to go to the forward, yes, you can have forward. Right? You can always go. If you want to go back some pages back, you can always go back. Let's say, for instance, I want to go back to 3 links back. You can always go. Let's say go to 3. 3 will give you some URL. Or if you remember the URL, then you can always provide your URL here. So in this way, you can actually use your history button. Similarly, you have something called uh, location. I think we have already seen the location part, but in location we have two things to understand, right? In, let's say, in button click, I'm gonna say something, go to form, and here let's say on click, let's say I'm gonna say something called location. I have dot reload, for instance. Now what does it mean? Now when I run this page, see, when I click on this reload, which is my go to form, right, I'm actually ticking a server request, right? I'm taking a server request here. Oh, one second. Right click in your browser, click on this, right? I'm clicking it. So as you can see here, so it is so fast that I'm not when I click on it, you can see that this is posting, or it is completely refreshing my, it's like control F5 I'm pressing. When I press control F5, my complete resource, my form will be refreshed. That's how it is, which is your reload is. So when you reload your page, right, now definitely when I click on this reload, you can see it is actually loading up, right? So similarly, you have one more method in location called replace. Replace with, for instance, form3.html, for example, right? So here what happens, this is to refresh the current. But when I click on this go to form, or let me change it to form 3 for instance, right? So here when I click on this, what it will do, see here what happens when I replace, it is going to completely replace the page. See here one beautiful thing, when I'm saying replace, it will even change the history. Even in history, there is no document of HTML. It will completely change even the history, saying pages form 3. That's it. That's how replace works, right? Replace is completely the way it actually takes up. That's your location. So these are kind of some you know um, DOM elements and objects which we have in JavaScript. The complete. Now you can see that the powerful nature of DOM elements, how we can actually access, and what different major actions we can actually perform, right? So all these things are basically used as a internal components of jQuery and Angular, basically to perform these actions. So we are actually looking at the very micro level of things. But when we actually use in real time Angular, right, all these things will be provided as a internal APIs, and we should know how to use them to perform multiple things, right? Anyways, we're going to learn that. So this is what we have for today, and we are towards the end of JavaScript, and we are going to understand very important thing called cookie handling, very important. And we are going to understand the class and object. You may be wondering how. Yes, JavaScript also have concept of class and object, and also the inheritance, very important, which is basically used, right? These are the stuff which are basically used in handling multiple um, object handlings in jQuery and Angular, right? Now, most of the like in Angular, we're going to have work with models and controls and stuff, right? Now, these are very important to understand. So when we meet in next class, we'll actually start looking at this. Right? Thank you.